This episode of Founders Unfiltered is brought to you by Thompson Hine. Thompson Hine's new ventures group represents high-growth companies of all sizes in the technology, healthcare, life sciences, consumer product, media, and medical device industries, and a full range of angel, venture capital funds, corporate innovation groups, and economic development organizations that invest in them. Instead of a confusing hourly rate-based model, the team at Thompson Hine uses its Quick Launch program to offer menu-based pricing to help startups grow their teams and take on outside investors. For more information, please visit thquicklaunch.com. All right, welcome to Founders Unfiltered. I am your host, Freddie Coffey. Very excited to be joined today by David Edelman, founder of Thrivable, a real-time market research platform for healthcare organizations. David is a master entrepreneur. In addition to being one himself, he received a degree in entrepreneurship from Brown. He's a coach for the entrepreneurs organization Accelerator and past president and board member of Hebrew Free Loan Association of Northeast Ohio. After his previous startup, Diabetes Daily, was acquired by Everyday Health, he discovered a critical need for on-demand market research. He began building Thrivable to solve the healthcare industry's need for real-time voice-of-patient data to incorporate into product development and business decisions. His platform helps clients significantly cut research cycles from months to days. David, welcome to Founders Unfiltered. How you doing?
Great, Freddie. Excited to chat with you today.
So I can't wait to hear more about Thrivable and what's going on with that venture. But before we get into that, let's talk about a little history for you. Let's go a little further back. What brought you into this wild world of entrepreneurship?
I think in hindsight, I might have been destined for it. I always had this geeky side to me. So when I was 13 years old, I had a dial-up BBS running out of my bedroom. You know, the little modem sound connecting would like dial directly into my computer.
I was going to do the sound effect if you didn't. I'm glad you did that.
Let's hear it. Let's hear your version of
beep, beep, beep.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's exactly, that brought me back. And so it was just this like cool experience where I got to be part of this community of people who were actually all older than me, thought I was like 16 or 20, would like invite me to play ultimate frisbee at the polo fields. And I was like terrified to meet everybody or know anything. So I kind of hid behind the screen, but kind of learned and was part of creating this kind of community. And, you know, in college, I kind of kept up this entrepreneurial stuff. I started a digital magazine called Scatter, which was kind of a Facebook-y college social network plus local advertising and an affinity card. At least that was the vision. We only made it so far along there. In fact, we didn't quite have the same level of success that Facebook did. But again, a learning opportunity, a chance to connect around digital communities. And then in my early 20s, I met a woman, Elizabeth, who had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And we were trying to figure out just some like real world stuff. How much insulin do you take for your sushi? And we were looking online and there wasn't a good place to find out this really critical piece of information. I love sushi. And so we decided, hey, let's put up an online community and connect people around diabetes. And so we started Diabetes Daily. And that kind of grew and grew and grew to reaching millions of people per year. It became really a thriving kind of lifestyle type business, and set us up in this position for us to recognize this opportunity for Thrivable, which is a real-time market research platform for healthcare.
So talk to me about Diabetes Daily and kind of what that entailed.
So from a kind of business creation perspective, it's Diabetes Daily was this like series of intricate problems to solve, right? So I was the coder, I was the online advertiser, I was the email marketer, I was the, eventually the bookkeeper, I was the travel agent for the travel, but really at its core, it was how do we connect people and build this community? And it wasn't a business. It was never meant to be a business. It was really a chance to learn and to grow. So I love that all over the world, there were these, influencer summits to bring together people living with diabetes and these patient advocacy communities. And we had a seat at the table. We got to talk to the FDA about their policies and the way that the slow approval process for new health tech was having a negative impact on people with diabetes who wanted things to move faster, wanted more automation, wanted these new gadgets and gizmos that could make life easier. And so I had a chance to have this kind of, with my business hat on, really a unique kind of education, this 360-degree view of an industry, seeing it from talking to the CEOs of companies and the entrepreneurs and the founders, talking to government, talking to the patient advocacy community, talking to healthcare, talking to insurers, talking to really everybody with anything to do with someone living with diabetes. And I like, on the business side, you can look back at the revenue history and yeah, it was a lot of work for not a lot of money, but amazing education.
Well, let's talk about that education. What were some of the most important lessons that you learned from your experience in building that, working within the healthcare industry and learning the ins and outs? And how did you use those things to launch Thrivable?
Yeah, so I think I launched at Diabetes Daily. Diabetes Daily was successful by a ton of metrics, but I launched a lot of digital products and online university, a slew of things that were total failures. And I think one thing that I kind of have figured out over the years is how important this customer validation phase is in the front end, to know, hey, what do customers actually want? What is the value proposition? What will they pay for? It did not make sure it's something I think is cool, something I'd like to make, a change I'd like to see, but creating something that people are actually desperate to have. I will pay you and I badly want it and I don't care if it sucks, is totally different than, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I like it. Nice idea. Those are two, one of those is a business that can make money and the other is a recipe for years of your life flushed down the drain trying to get someone to buy something they don't actually really want. And so in Thrivable, we're building Diabetes Daily. We were working with all these health tech companies and they were coming to us saying, hey, we're bringing products to market and we want to know what patients think. And once I started digging into that, I really realized this was a major pain point. We would try to sell advertising to somebody. They would just be kind of sitting there in a meeting yeah, David, we like you. We'll re-up for next year. I'll buy a little advertising. And then I'd said, and we're thinking about market research, whoa, oh my God, let me tell you all the problems we're having, and blah, 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 blah. And the whole tenor of every conversation changed. And I think that's when I knew that we had hit on something. And even from there, spent so much time vetting out the idea. So I think that's the biggest thing. The second biggest thing is I met, before I started Thrivable, I met my now wife, Carrie, and Carrie has an exceptionally high EQ. She's just really, really good with people. I overhear all the time having extremely difficult conversations with people, and they come out of it appreciating her and liking her more. Everyone loves her. And so I started 4 years ago, this new education and listening and really being present with people and really understanding. And she introduced me to her, who is now my COO, Ryan, who was working at Deloitte, and he was ready for a change. He's just kind of burnt out of the consulting game, doing a great job, making great money and crushing it, but wanting to do something new. And so she's like, why don't you talk to David and learn a little bit about entrepreneurship and just, a good way to start exploring the world. And I really, really hit it off with Ryan. And Ryan is kind of like Harry, he has that super high EQ, really process oriented, problem solver mind, very take a big vision. He can break it down to all the little pieces that need to go right to make it happen. And when Ryan joined my team, I think everything kind of transformed for me. And I started to get this deep appreciation for what working with exceptionally talented leaders can do. And I've started to just anything I can do to build relationships with leaders, whether they're advisors, whether they're, friends who've done it before, whatever, to really build these relationships so that I don't have to guess anymore. When I have a question about how you run a sales process, I call Royce Brunson, our chief revenue officer advisor, who's, scaled a business from 10 million to 30 million, is doing it a second time. And it's Royce, how do I structure this? How do I do this? Let me vent for an hour about all my problems. And Royce can give me the answer. And I didn't have that with Diabetes Daily. I had none of that. It was just struggling to figure out everything the hard way. which is a great way to learn and a terrible way to build a rapid growth startup.
Well, it sounds like you learned not only, a lot about how you need to build a startup, but also a lot about yourself in the process. A good entrepreneur, a great entrepreneur, hears a pain point and goes after the solution or finds the solution. You were basically screamed at with "this is our pain point," and decided to do something about it, building this market research platform for the healthcare industry. But that takes a team, that takes specific knowledge. You needed developers to build that platform. How did you find those developers? How did you put together the software side of the team to build out something so nuanced?
So we raised $250K seed round, which we could talk about. But when the money hit the bank, it was time to go out and find developers. And so we started working our network and going out and trying to find some developers. And we hired somebody in Russia who we got through a recommendation, who's an incredible database engineer, designer, kind of technical architect. And then we started interviewing developers through Upwork and agencies and other channels to try to find and put together this team. And so we hired this one guy and we hired another guy and we started working on this thing. And I started having waking nightmares. The project was this is not going to go well. This is a disaster. The person is way too detail oriented. They don't understand the big picture. They want to figure it all out. They're not going to be scrappy. They're not able to communicate or collaborate with the other person we're hiring. The whole thing is going off the rails. And this is not an auspicious start. And I was basically saved and rescued by my friend Yura Zaplavnov. And I had met Yura back in my Diabetes Daily days, where we had done an integration with another app on our website, and it was the first project we did where everything went perfectly. He said, "This is what we're going to do. Here's how it's going to work." Did it, shipped it, no problems. And I kept in touch with Yura, and pretty soon he became my go-to guy for everything technical. And he had said, "Hey, the budget you want to do this with Thrivable on, I can't do this. I don't know if I have the capacity." But he was kind of watching me suffering, and I'm kind of sharing my experience. And I just got an email of him out of the blue, a month after we had tried to start this project. He's like, "David, I talked to my guys. 10 points. It's we will do it for this budget, maybe 20% more. If it's not done on time, the guys will donate their time to make sure it gets up. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be this and this and this and this and this. And I want to build this with you. And I think that we should work together." And Yura did it. He threw together a team of people he's worked with for years, 5 guys. And they absolutely crushed the product. They're so talented, so good. We went through a code audit project with Jumpstart after Jumpstart invested, and just got raving reviews on the code base. But it's Yura. I mean, it comes back to people. It's Ryan. It's Yura. We hired Kendra, our marketing lead. It's Kendra, Maria, our research lead. It's finding amazing people who are just exceptionally talented at what they do and painting them a picture of the future that's so compelling that they're like, "Hey, I want to be on this train and I want to go with you." And it took me a long time to get there because I needed a picture of the future. That's one thing. That's a vision. And I think it's the core thing. But then you also need a way to get there. So hey, we're going to go raise money. Here's what the financing looks like. Here's a pathway to making this thing real. And you got to get that piece right too. And I think that's hard, especially if you haven't done it before.
Well, now that you've done it, everybody has a unique set of skills. Let's stay on the people side of things for a minute here. Were a lot of those meetings and those hires serendipitous, or is there something that you're really keying in on and looking for when you're creating that team and making those hires? How do you find a co-founder, a founding team, a development team that complements your knowledge base and also plays into the culture that you want to see in your company?
Oh man, it's Someone once used this phrase with me, like social surface area, like how many people do you come in contact with? And so I think part of it is really, really building a big, broad, and diverse network. And that just takes time, right? And I had a huge head start with Diabetes Daily. So that was like this chance to really get to know a ton of people. But the people we brought on our team, a lot of them actually haven't come through our network. I think it's come from a really, really thoughtful hiring and recruiting process. So, and Ryan, my COO, is very, very data oriented. And he still has all his notes from business school. And he'll pull up case studies. He's like, oh yeah, I read a case study on that. And he pulls it up on his iPad in like 2 seconds and is reading to me. It's like, so, but one of the things is on hiring. And so we went out and we looked at all the research on hiring. Google has an amazing website called Google Rework, which is where they publish all the research on hiring. It's where they say like, hey, you know that great brain teaser? How many golf balls can fit on a 747? Like, that's a terrible interview question. It has no correlation with who's going to be successful or not, although it might make the interview feel like, he's cool shit. So we kind of went through and looked at all this research, and we settled on behavioral interviewing, and we do like a really traditional process. Here's a rubric of the key skill sets that we're looking for in somebody. And here's what we define culture fit as. Here's the cultural attributes that someone needs to have. And we screen first on the cultural attributes. Our first 25, 30% of the interview process doesn't even touch on somebody's skills. It's just making sure, hey, are we going to work together well? And so our values: put people first, cultivate joy, listen to understand, be scrappy and fast, be a leader, like a servant leader, and deliver extraordinary. And so we actually have questions tied to all those things. And so like one of them is cultivate joy. And so you might think, all right, how in the world do you figure out if somebody cultivates joy? Like, what does that mean? And to me, that actually means like, you don't have to come to work with a smile on your face every day. Like, let's be real. Like, that's not like a reasonable thing. Maybe like we all have hard days, but it's like deeper. It's living life in alignment with your values. Right. It's being your true, authentic self. Like, I think that's like where this, joy in your work stems from. And so we ask people, hey, tell me about a time when you were especially happy for a coworker. And you might think that's a ridiculous question. Like, anyone can just come up with anything, but you would be shocked. Like, people have like a deer in headlights moment, and like 2 minutes later, they like can't actually think of a time they were happy for a coworker. And like, that's actually a major red flag, because we take the happiness of our coworkers really, really seriously. Like, we care about each other and our lives. And like, someone has a sibling with a health emergency and is taking care of them, and our team supports that person. And we're like happy for them to be doing that. And we will rearrange our schedules and things to make it work. And we need other people who come into the culture who are like that. Otherwise, maybe one person you can survive, but 2, 3, it starts to fray. And all of a sudden that isn't your culture. You have a culture where some people cultivate joy and some people are assholes. And we can't do it that way.
So we talk a lot about culture on this webcast, and we've probably had culture discussions with every founder that we've had on with us. But none we haven't had any yet until now that kind of have two offices, kind of like you do. So I don't know if we mentioned this when you're talking about your development team, but they're not located in the U.S. They are in Kiev, right?
Yep.
Am I right on that? Okay. So they're there. You're here. How do you create company culture in two vastly different environments?
That's a great question. And I mean, that actually has been a little more by happenstance. I think we're really lucky in that Yura is an amazing culture fit for me. So I think he shares a very, very similar set of values. And he hired as our product owner, Vladimir. I mean, he independently manages all the hiring. I don't actually vet any of the technical hires.
Okay.
But he hired Vladimir, who one of our 4 Vladimirs on our team. Vladimir, and Vladimir. No, maybe it's 3 Vladimirs.
It's easy to remember that 4th one.
VLOD. Yeah. So Our product owner, Vladimir, is just, he has that same kind of caring compassion and wants to take care of people and is interested in people and wants to nurture them, wants them to grow, wants to like sit down with them and take care of them. And also has that same high bar for excellence. And like our team does crazy amount of screening. Like you'd think, oh, we're going to hire in the UK. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of talent, but the market is actually crazy tight. We have like 3, 4, 5 recruiting agencies. We've screened more than 1,000 candidates through recruiting agencies and maybe 20 or 30 interviews, going on interviews without hiring a lead Java developer. Like the market is so tight, and it's like you want great people, and they want people when they interview them that these are experts at the top of their field. And so it's, I don't know, it's the people you hire under you. Like if you're going to build an office in Ukraine, you need someone, yours from Ukraine. Like he knows the people, he knows the language, he knows the culture, and it's different there. So we have an office in person. We are fully remote in America. Like why are we remote here and we have an office there? It's because one, the nature of the work, so much cross collaboration across different teams, it's just easier. Two, people, when they're going to work for a company in Ukraine, like they want to know, is this a real company? There's a lot of like fly by night operations, like, oh yeah, we're going to be huge, and then you fail. So everybody like has this experience of whiplash of getting involved in something and having it collapse. So having an office in Kiev, and having your name on it, having like $4,000 MacBooks, like filling up all the different spaces, like that means something to people. I mean, just having fresh fruits and vegetables every day, and you know, being taken out to the restaurant for borscht is like part of that kind of culture of like, hey, we're going to take care of you, and you have a future in this organization. And we fly there. We took everyone on a retreat for 3 days to a spa in October, and Ryan and I flew out there, and I can't keep up with them. I can't drink past 1 a.m. anymore, but we stayed up till 1 a.m. and, you know, we were the only ones at breakfast. But that's the commitment. It's to be there, to show up, to have great people on your team. And together that seems to somehow be working out.
You kind of answered this question already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What are some of the specific advantages and challenges to hiring a development team outside the U.S.?
It's funny because the hardest part of hiring a development team in the U.S. is hiring, and the hardest part about hiring a development team in Ukraine is hiring. So it's
fair. Wherever
you are, I think it's finding great people. I mean, the advantage in Ukraine is that it's probably 30% cheaper, and it's certainly in Kiev. I mean, it's a population of greater Kiev. I think it's 3, 4, 5 million people, and there's a high density of developers. It's just a hot spot, and so I think one of the challenges in Cleveland is we're just not like a hot spot today for development resources. But if I didn't know Yura, I don't know that I would have gone to Ukraine. I think I would have hired locally. I think I would have tried to put together a team here. Like it's this unique aspect of having someone I can trust. Like Yura's not even full-time on our team. I think he's going to join our team as CTO next year, but he like volunteer managed this project. Like he did not make a lot of money. He did it because he believes in me and us and our friendship and our future, and it's something he wanted to do. But like you can't hire that. Like that's like, you know, if there's a problem, he's gonna like stay up until 1 a.m. and kind of sort it out regardless. And so that's like not a contractor attitude. That's like a founder attitude.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you find that. It's just getting the first couple people is just absolutely freaking hard.
You mentioned something a minute ago that I found really interesting. You're maintaining the office there in the Ukraine, but you're fully remote here. Was that a decision that was made? Was that a COVID-related decision? Did that happen before the pandemic? What, if anything, has the pandemic changed about how you make decisions around the business?
That's interesting. Yeah. So we have been remote. So when diabetes daily hiring, everyone on our team was living with diabetes. It was really important, right? I wanted people who were selling, people who were doing the work to really like live and understand this experience, like to be an authentic community. And so we wanted to hire the best people, the best writers, wherever they were. And a lot of these are like part-time roles. So it's like, you know, someone who has kids at home, they want to work 15, 20 hours a week. So maybe we can kind of scale up. And so when we started Thrivable, we had this team, but we had Claire, our admin in Japan. I had, moderators on literally 4 continents. We had our writers in Wisconsin and New Hampshire and New Jersey. And so like everything, all of our systems were built to remote. And the nice thing about that is when you're remote, you need systems of accountability. You need processes. You can't just like go knock on someone's door. You need to create a system in which everyone can function really well remotely. And I'm kind of process oriented and Ryan is. So I think early on, we just focused very, very obsessively on lightweight, repeatable processes and just continuously improving them. And lightweight, like some people are process oriented, but like in a very bad, like you want to pull your hair out way. Processes should support the people within them, not crush them. And so we were ready to go. COVID happened and like literally no change. Except it became easier to meet with customers because now they were also remote, so we didn't have to go anywhere.
I've heard you say, talking about culture and making decisions for your business, that you're an entrepreneur because you didn't want to work in a culture that made you unhappy. How do you find happiness and balance in fast-paced, often stressful environment of startups?
This is something I think I've always kind of been immune to like social pressure. Like, okay, maybe I was very, very following social pressure in high school and college, but like I kind of always like have been anti-rules or like marched to the beat of my own drummer. But I think that calmness piece probably came from 5 years at Burning Man and just going out to the desert for a week, 10 days. Actually I'd help build a camp and tear it down and be there for like 12 days. And I wouldn't have a watch on. I wouldn't have a piece of tech. I would just be present in the moment. And I think I started to really appreciate what it's like to not be focused so much on the future, to not be focused on the past, like the self-talk, berating yourself, and just being like grateful for your present moment. And the way I think about it is just, I have goals, and each day, each week, what are the most important things I need to move forward? And I fill my day as much as I can with things that are moving the company forward, and I don't stress about, I think I worked on Diabetes Daily from 2005 until we sold it to Everyday Health in 2021. So that's like 15 years. That's so many times around the calendar and like so many crazy ups and downs that like you start to realize like what you do in a given day or a different week. I had a wrench thrown in my calendar today, right? And I had some important stuff I really wanted to get done, but I did something else. And did I stress about it? No, it's just like, all right, this is also important. I'm going to do that. And I don't know, it's like a kind of very Zen mindfulness meditation thing. I think it's easy to get caught up in work. But for me, work is something fun to do and problems to solve, but I'm also not like obsessed with it. Like my family comes first. My health comes first. And I think that's not at odds with having a venture-backed startup. It just requires self-knowledge and a willingness to say, why am I doing this? And like, I'm going to do my all within this period of my time. And the other time I'm going to have the rest of my life, because I was thinking about the other day, like we have 20 plus people on our team. That's like 40,000 working hours a year. It's a start. It was probably 50 or 60,000 working hours. Like, what could I do working an extra 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week? Like nothing. Like all my success is high leverage activities of finding the right people, doing a better job communicating the vision. And so if I focused on the churning the milk into butter or whatever, like with my little feet, like I would never get that. I think there's some like story, right, about the mouse who falls in a bucket and it struggles and works so hard. Like, yeah, if you're falling into a thing of butter, that's a great strategy, but that's not a startup. A startup is like a marathon. Like you're going to drown or like die of exhaustion long before you turn your startup to butter. I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit, but there's some.
No, that's okay. That's a great reference to Catch Me If You Can. So now I'm gonna have to watch that later today too. So the Christopher Walken quote. I thought this was going to be a difficult transition from what I'm going to ask you next, but you said that culture and balance is not at odds with venture. So I'm switching gears to money here, away from culture. I want to say first of all, congratulations on your recent fundraising round. Seed funding milestone is impressive, but I want to ask you not about the 1.8 million round, but about that 250K that you mentioned earlier. What did you learn from your first round?
Oh my God. That was just like a Sisyphean task, pushing the boulder up the hill all day while the like birds pecking out your organs. So going into that, we had a great 6-figure customer, which is pretty sweet, doing, market research in a manual way with us, but validating the need. And we had this phenomenal product idea, and we had just reimagine the way market research can be done. And so what did we do? We went and we tried to explain to people, all these people I knew, all these relationships, hey, we have this way to revolutionize market research. Let me tell you how it works. And we'd show them it does this and this and this and this, and people's eyes are glazing over. They're not quite following it. And I've noticed this form of pitching. I see a lot of pitches now, like rampant. Everybody seems to pitch this way. You fall in love with your little baby and you want to know, look at your baby, here's how it works, look at its skills. And it's a miracle. I mean, I went into one of our advisors and I said, hey, we're going to raise money. Here's the pitch deck. I'd like to get your feedback. And came out of that meeting, I got a phone call an hour later from Brad. He's like, hey, I had some advice, but I'm interested in investing. And I think at that time it was like $100,000. And so we went out, and we honestly could not get anyone to bite. Just couldn't. But Brad ended up upping the amount, and we raised a good chunk of change for this first round, and gave us the ability to. And I think we're trying to raise $750. So this was like, at the time it felt kind of like a failure, but in hindsight, we raised exactly how much we needed to go build an MVP and get this product to where we could go out and raise a significant chunk of money, because we had more customers, we had some proof we could develop technically, and we had just developed some more traction. The second time around, I learned from those mistakes. Yeah, I learned halfway. I'm going to be able to tell you after the next round I learned 4 mistakes, but I learned half the lessons after the first round. So the first round, okay, so here's what I did not learn. So I had a baby on May 2nd, 2020, and we were running out of money in August. And we started raising money for our next round on May 5th. So I am not sleeping. I'm exhausted. We're running out of cash. And we had this pitch deck we hadn't started. And we went out, and I was feeling pretty good, because the first 7 people we talked to are like, I'll write a check, I'll write a check, I'll write a check. Because we had kind of paved the way through these relationships the year before. We had shown the traction. They're ready to go. And then we kind of hit a wall with institutional investors. And it was actually the same kind of problem as before. We're focused on the product, and people couldn't kind of grok what we were doing. So my first investor, Brad, introduced me to Michael Klassen, who was chief of staff at Greenspring Associates, an $11 billion VC to the VCs. Harris Stranch, who works at Coppermine Capital, the Gunn Family Foundation. And these guys helped us with our pitch. And they come from the finance world. And what they started doing was reorienting everything that we're saying around traction and how we're going to make money. Our pitch went from 15 minutes to 7 minutes. It went from telling you all about the product to not having a single screenshot or demo. I think half of our investors never saw a demo of our product. Didn't even care. Didn't even know what it looks like. Doesn't know what it does. What they knew was, hey, you have a vision for the future. Customers like this and want it. You can make money doing it. Here's how you make money. And here's how you're going to scale it up. And you have a team that can do this. And people love that. They're like, great idea. Customers love you. You're making money. You can make more. We're going to invest. And that first conversation for an institutional investor with, I think, North Coast Ventures took 4 months, 5 months. And July, a long time. The last investment conversation with Early Light Ventures took 48 hours from first.
So it seems that it's easier to get the yes the farther along you go, but a big part of raising rounds are the no's that you get along the way. How have those no's played into your success as a founder and as a fundraiser?
So the kind of hidden gem of the fundraising process was you get to talk all the time to really smart people, and they ask you really hard questions about your business. And one part of you is like, oh my God, I do not want to go and model out panelist interaction and do this huge spreadsheet because someone asked you one question. It's 5 hours of work. But then you go model it out and you start to be like, oh, that's actually a good question. I haven't thought about it this way. This is probably an important metric for us. And so all those interactions gave us so much insight into how we need to track our business. And they identified early challenges for us, like panelist recruitment. How are you going to scale this? How are you going to scale this? And we had scaled so effortlessly in diabetes that I think we thought all the scaling was going to be easy. And even today, like, this is a major challenge for us. It's something that we're working on every day. We're going to crush it. We're going to do it. But investors like identify that. So the nose can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but the opportunity to learn doing fundraising is incredible. And it's just, you got to know like what to take and what to leave, right? Take the constructive feedback, even if it's delivered by somebody who's not good at delivering it, and leave the rest. And I don't know exactly how you do that emotionally. A good therapist maybe help, or a partner, business or personal, but it's emotional actually. I mean, this is your baby. You're out there. A part of me, for some people who said no, I'm like, I want to win, just to stick it to them. Not much. That's not my main thing, but there's like a tiny little piece of me that feels that way, like somewhere down over here.
So of that advice and constructive criticism that you've taken in, what's the best advice that you've received from a VC?
Honestly, it's all been tactical. Well, I think I was really focused on cash flow and runway for a while. Like those are obviously, I still am. Those are two very, very important things. But one of our investors said, hey, like, if there's something you need to do over the next 2 years and you have the money and you can do it next week, don't wait 2 years to do it because it's on your roadmap. You're budgeted to spend the money over 2 years, or you're budgeted to spend it in 6 months. Like if something's going to lead to growth, do it now. Like if you can spend your money faster and grow to 2 million faster in revenue, or 3 million or 4 million, whatever that number is, do it, because like, why would you grow slower? But like, obviously, right? That's so true. Like, growing faster is better than growing slower, but that's like a different orientation to have if you've lived your life as a bootstrapper, which I have. I've always been a bootstrapper. And honestly, for a lot of businesses, bootstrapping is probably better. Like if you can't go and build a really, really big company really, really quickly, you should bootstrap. You should find investors who can stick with you for the long haul. They don't care if it takes you 3, 4, 5, 6 years to kind of build this kind of thing. But once you say, hey, I want to dominate a big industry where there are going to be billion-dollar players, like you kind of got a gun for speed, right? If you don't get quickly to 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 million, like someone else might get there faster than you and block you out. Yeah.
So speaking of advice, you kind of wear both hats as a founder with the army of advisors and investors that you talk to, a great network there, but also as a coach for Entrepreneurs Organization. How have mentors and advisors supported your entrepreneurial journey, and why do you want to help out as well?
I mean, I'm wired this way. Like I was, my first job was like as a swim instructor. I taught swim lessons, and I was a camp counselor, and like I've just always been. Whenever I liked helping kids study in school. Like I always learned from it, and I got a lot out of watching other people grow and succeed. So I think there's just like a kind of one is it's a hard wired nature of it. 2, I just, in my 20s, I didn't have business advisors. I didn't have people who I could just chat with, and I didn't even know how to find them and what to do. And so I joined Entrepreneurs Organization's Accelerator, which is for companies with at least 250 in revenue who want to scale above $1 million, or even some bigger companies who want the curriculum and the community around it. And like that community just transformed my life. I met other entrepreneurs and I learned so much. First of all, I learned most people have no idea what they're doing. Most people are not geniuses. These are everyday people like that. I may have done better in school than many of them, but like they have like grit, or they can sell, they can pick up the phone. They have like a skill and an idea. But they go and they solve all these problems together. And you start to realize like anybody can kind of, who has like a willingness to put themselves out there and create something, can kind of do this. And it's not pretty and it requires a lot of trial and error, but being surrounded by other people who are in the process of doing that, making themselves vulnerable, smashing their head against the wall, dealing with hiring issues, I have some people that I work with in food service, and oh my God, hiring in food service right now, the pain and suffering, I tip like crazy now. Like just every person, I'm trying to help every restaurant owner in Cleveland. But like anyone who wants to build something can benefit from tapping into one of these communities. I mean, if someone has a 250K business or greater, join EO Accelerator and get tapped. There's about 40-ish members right now, and they're phenomenal. And when your business grows up a little bit, the Entrepreneurs Organization, which this is part of, is for businesses over $1 million or raise $2 million in financing, is like this incredible network of bigger businesses. And like, I think there's 27,000 members across the US, across the world. And these people, any one of them will pick up the phone and help any other member because they all know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. They all know the struggle. They all know the journey. And there's this like camaraderie and community. And you just have to find it, tap into it, make those first couple relationships, and you will just find your network explodes with people who care for you, want to help you succeed, want to like pave the way for the next person to do something difficult. And that the whole world was completely invisible to me until my mid-30s.
Incredibly important to develop that network, to rely on advisors and mentors and those who have come before you. There's obviously support organizations out there, entrepreneurial support organizations, Jumpstart, of course, being one of them.
Jumpstart's amazing. Hold on, Heather Hall was my first EI entrepreneur in residence there. And when we raised our first round of financing, like our story, she helped so much. When it comes to hiring, Jumpstart assists with recruitment. Like you guys have helped us find so many great candidates. So I just want to pause and say, like, for us, Jumpstart has been an incredible resource and a like powerhouse asset in the Cleveland community. So like I am very grateful for you.
Well, certainly accept that, and thank you for that, David. I was going to say, I was leading up to, there's all these different organizations that can provide advice, that can provide support. I want to get one from you. What piece of advice would you have for founders that are just getting started? If you had to pick just something, one nugget to give out there for free.
I mean, we've talked about people, so let's just assume you know that people matter, and you're trying to find great people to be in your network. I would say the one thing that advising a lot of people is it's like Jim Collins' fire bullet before cannonballs. Like, do quick things that can let you figure out if your idea has legs or not before you do the hard things. All of a sudden, someone's like, I have this idea. I'm going to build a website, launch it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa. Like, do you really know if this is going to work? Like, oh, yeah, I think it's a great idea. And then I have seen this merry-go-round like 100 times where they're coming back a year later and it just hasn't worked. And they just wasted an entire year of building stuff that nobody really wants, when they could have pivoted 30 or 40 or 50 times if they were just talking to their customers and kind of figuring it out. And then they're like, I don't quite like this, but what about this? Okay, now you start pitching that. And like it's how many iterations of your product can you get before you start building? Because once you start building, everything gets crazy expensive. It takes us weeks and months to roll out a feature. So like we better spend that time on the whiteboard when you're like, oh, I don't like this. Squeak, 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 squeak. How about this? Like, you know how much cheaper that is than like 5 full-time developers spending $20,000 building that feature? That's my advice.
All right. Well, I think that's some great advice. That's something we're gonna end on that there. We're gonna take a little bit of a quick break. When we get back, we've got our Founders Fast 5 for you, David. You've got to answer 5 questions. It's a bit of our lightning round, and we'll be right back with David Edelman on Founders Unfiltered. Thanks again for tuning into this episode of Founders Unfiltered, and we want to invite you back next month on Wednesday, January 26th for the next episode featuring BlendEd founder David Boone. BlendEd is an instructor experience platform allowing college professors to build and deliver content-rich learning experiences easier and quicker than ever before. After experiencing the discrepancies in available resources of college instructors between Ivy League schools and community colleges, David Boone set out to create an all-in-one solution for multimodal digital resources for community college professors. Founded in 2020, this Cleveland-based startup has since raised $1.3 million in funding So again, join us January 26th for a conversation with David Boone. Now, back to David Edelman. We're back with David Edelman, founder of Thrivable. It is our Founders Fast Five. David, this is our lightning round. Here's how it's going to work. We've got 6 questions. You have to answer 5 of them. You get 1 pass. If you don't use your pass and you answer all 6 of them, you get the Founders Unfiltered prize, which is me kind of clapping like this.
Oh my
Are you
God.
ready to go?
I'll do anything for applause. Let's do this.
All right. Question number 1. You talked earlier about kind of your always had that entrepreneurial spirit, but when you were a kid, what did you want to be or think you were going to be when you grew up?
Free.
What is typically one of the first things you think about when you get up in the morning?
I've had a gratitude practice. So if it's not, why is my alarm going off? Then immediately after it, it is smiling and saying one thing, like thinking what I'm grateful for. And it probably always starts with my family and my health.
How do you keep yourself motivated?
Surrounding myself with good people, so I'm not doing it alone. It's actually really hard to be motivated when you're alone.
This one is a fan favorite. You've talked about, so I'm going to bring this one back from past episodes. You've talked about good advice you've had from VCs. What's the weirdest thing you've ever heard in a meeting with a VC?
Oh boy. It's a small community. I don't want to say something that someone might recognize as what they told me. The weirdest things. Nothing weird. We've heard some dumb things. It's like a pass. I don't want to give myself.
I'm still going to give you applause at the end anyway. If money and resources were no obstacle, what big problem would you love to try and tackle next?
Oh, that's interesting. Probably something on helping people grow and thrive. I think there's a lot of people that are hurting and that have like negative self-talk, difficult situations, things like there are a lot of people that are held back by the situation they're in, right? It's not their fault. Like you're born in a certain situation, your family, things, and there's some domain in which you have control that it has to do with your orientation towards things. And I think helping people kind of grow in that way, I know how impactful it's been for me, and I'd love to share that with more people.
This one is much less deep than that one, a little lighthearted one to end on. You are running a company where you've got people all over the world, but you're here in Cleveland. What is your favorite hidden gem or the best kept secret for you about Cleveland?
Oh my God. I can't do one. I got to do 2. So the nature one, okay. Highland Valley National Park, the Buckeye Trail. If you start at the Jait Trailhead, Jaite, and head north or south, stunningly beautiful. I think that's like some of the best hiking in Cleveland. And the sushi tasting at Ginkgo's, the chef's tasting, is like a world-class meal. Like you could not believe that you can get sushi, that is exceptionally good and creative and interesting in Cleveland, Ohio. Like world-class sushi.
As long as you know what your blood sugar is going to be afterwards, right? As
long as you know. Although little portions over many hours, it's actually probably pretty stellar. It's not like a whole bunch of maki. This is like fish pasta with a fish jelly and with a fish this. And then another course comes out and it's like a fried mountain crab that's only in season 2 weeks out of the year. And you just eat it in like a bite. It's like a little kind of spider roll kind of thing. It's amazing.
All right. Well, it's the end of the lunch hour. Everybody's mouth is watering now. Thank you, David. Thank you for spending this time with us. We really appreciate it. I wish you nothing but success for Thrivable, for any venture following that in the future. And again, thank you so much for the insight and advice you've given us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Freddie. It's been fun.
Well, that's going to do it for today. Of course, thank you one more time for tuning into this episode of Founders Unfiltered, and special thanks to our sponsor, Thompson Heim. Whether you're looking for capital services or connections, Jumpstart is here and ready to help. Start or scale your entrepreneurial journey today by visiting us online at jumpstartinc.org. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on Founders Unfiltered.